Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The scriptures instruct us that in so much as it is in our power to do so, we should live peaceably with others. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Romans 12:18. In fact, this is the fruit of godly wisdom. The book of James distinguishes godly and worldly wisdom. Reading from James chapter 3, starting with verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Again, that's from James chapter 3. Now, of course, we know the world is full of people exhibiting the wisdom from below, those driven by envy, selfish ambition, and the like. And that is one big reason human history is full of conflict and strife. And not just open warfare on the battlefield, but also there is strife in everyday life. Just think of bullies on the playground, jealousy fueled feuding among siblings and extended family, neighbors defending each other, and becoming passive aggressive towards one another, and so on. But this is not relegated to the world. Many of the same people go to church and bring their petty envies and selfish ambitions with them. In fact, James, when he was writing, was not writing to non-believers, but his fellow believers. This is especially destructive if people after this type of spirit come to positions of prominence within a congregation, as they can not only stir up strife within the congregation, but also make a spectacle for those who are without the congregation, even damaging the reputation of the whole church in that community. As James writes, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Contrasting that is godly wisdom from above, to which James writes, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Now I think we do well to draw a distinction between being a peacemaker and merely a people pleaser or an appeaser. I don't think the biblical model of being a peacemaker requires us to sacrifice our principles or deny our rights merely for the sake of avoiding confrontations. Simply identifying as a Christian and trying to live a godly life will bring the world into conflict with you, as we'll go over in more detail in our next video. But we ought not to hide our faith or water it down merely for the sake of not having any adversity in our lives. And we have biblical examples to follow in this regard. Christ didn't stop preaching his message merely because it was unpopular with the scribes and Pharisees of that time. Neither did the disciples and apostles after him. That said, we should not add offense to the message. We should strive to be shining examples of the heavenly wisdom James wrote about, being considerate, full of mercy and good works, impartial and sincere in all our dealings with our siblings, neighbors, co-workers, etc., even extending hospitality to our enemies. In so doing, we go a long way toward diffusing conflicts while fostering relationships that will lead to lasting peace. Even still, some people seem to be addicted to stirring up drama and creating conflicts. Perhaps some people just like the attention it draws. Other people seek to benefit from conflicts. Maybe it makes for higher television ratings, or it's good for business if you sell ammunition to one or both of the sides of a conflict. But remember the proverb that says God hates it when people sow discord among brethren. Arguably one of the most eloquent passages in the book of Isaiah is found in Isaiah chapter 3. And the chapter starts out, In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's house will be the highest of all, the most important place on earth. It will be raised above the other hills, and people from all over the world will stream there to worship. People from many nations will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of Jacob's God. There he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the Lord's teaching will go out from Zion, his word will go out from Jerusalem. The Lord will mediate between nations and settle international disputes. They will hammer their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will no longer fight against nation, nor train for war any more." And I think that last verse helps convey the cost of war. They will hammer their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. In other words, they'll put all of that energy and resources that they were putting into developing the means to kill one another into more productive means, such as plowshares and pruning hooks. And as someone who's personally fascinated with economics, the opportunity costs associated with conflict is huge. All that energy that goes into the war effort is energy that can't be spent elsewhere. Now, whenever there is a conflict, there's always some basket case that will argue that war is good for the economy. Or they'll say, "Hey, the war helped drag the country out of the Great Depression," which it's not, and it didn't. War destroys property and lives on a colossal scale. It's not good for the economy. It destroys wealth. It doesn't create it. So unless you're a gravedigger or you're selling arms to the combatants in the conflict, it's not good for the economy. And even still, it's even in those cases, it's only good for the economy in a very narrow sense. If you happen to be involved in that particular activity on net, it is a net drain on the economy. It's ludicrous to think that you create wealth by blowing it up. And this, of course, is true if we're talking about regional conflicts, international wars, civil wars, or even conflicts at all levels of humanity. The time and energy you waste feuding with your neighbors or coworkers or even your siblings is time and energy that you're not putting into productive things in your life, worthwhile things in your life. So when we are tempted to be drawn into a conflict, don't neglect to consider the cost of that conflict, up to and including the opportunity cost. What could you be doing elsewhere with that time and energy you're going to invest into a conflict? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.